In my past life, my mom caused my CEO dad's car accident and death. My maternal grandparents went bankrupt and committed suicide, and my uncle Kyle was framed and sent to prison. Reborn, they all returned to get revenge on my mom. Dad stared at mom's slightly rounded belly, his eyes dark. Chloe, are you trying to trick me with a fake pregnancy again? This life, I'll never believe you. The next second, he unexpectedly heard my inner voice. Fake pregnancy? Does Daddy think I don't exist? I'm here. Daddy, you're so handsome. You look super strong. You can definitely protect Mommy and me. My CEO dad froze, startled. Kyle sneered from the side. Chloe deliberately claims pregnancy to gain our pity, then she'll start plotting to harm us. Hmph. This time, I'll make her life a living hell. Mom looked at them, confused, while I kicked my feet around inside her belly. Uncle, my mommy isn't lying, okay? When I'm born, Uncle will lift me up high and spin me around. Everyone stared at Mom's slightly bulging belly, suddenly falling silent. Didn't Vivian say Chloe was faking her pregnancy? So, who is this little one having a concert in there? Under the cold hospital lights, the entire family's gazes were glued to Mom's slightly rounded belly. I shyly curled up, rolling halfway in the warm womb. Oh no! So many people are staring at baby.
I'm shy.
Dad and Kyle's bodies subtly jolted at the same time. Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor also exchanged surprised glances. They had all clearly heard that sweet, baby-like complaint. Vivian, oblivious, only found their sudden, more eerie silence strange. The dagger in Dad's hand clattered to the floor. He stared intensely at Mom's belly, his expression shifting from dark to utterly bewildered and uncertain. Mom looked up at him, asking confusedly, "What fake pregnancy? Honey, are you too excited to be a dad?" And Mom, Dad, Kyle, why do you all look so upset? Aren't you happy I'm pregnant? No one present paid attention to Mom's confusion. Their eyes were filled with deep resentment. Doctor, Dad suddenly yelled towards the door. Arrange a full prenatal checkup for her immediately. Vivian, the fake sister, quickly grabbed Dad's sleeve, her voice laced with urgency. Ethan, in the past life, didn't you personally see her big belly was just a pillow? And the private doctor I hired explicitly said she wasn't pregnant. Why check again? Hearing that, my tiny foot lightly kicked the uterine wall. That bad woman is lying again. In the past life, Mommy was pregnant with me, but a bad person pushed her down the stairs, and she lost her baby. That's why she held a pillow every day and sang lullabies. I could only become a little ghost, wiping away Mommy's tears. My little hands ached from struggling for countless days. To finally get this chance to be reborn and come back to Mommy's tummy. Thinking this, my nose stung, and I couldn't help but rub my cheek gently against the uterine wall, like a tiny kitten. Mommy, don't be scared. This time, I'll definitely protect you. I'm excited to see this world, excited to see Daddy and Mommy. Shut up, everyone shut up. Dad suddenly covered his ears, his pupils constricting violently as he stared at Mom's abdomen. Doctor, immediately, now, a prenatal checkup. A flicker of panic crossed Vivian's eyes. Kyle couldn't help but frown either. During the examination, when the cool ultrasound gel touched Mom's belly, I wiggled curiously.
Wow.
The chilly gel feels like Jell-O. Is the doctor looking for me with that probe? I'm here. Let Daddy see me. Dad unconsciously held his breath, staring intently at the screen. Kyle instinctively took a half step forward, and Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor clenched their hands tightly. The ultrasound machine suddenly emitted a strong, rhythmic thumping sound. A tiny, bean-like outline appeared on the screen, actively kicking its little legs. 14 weeks gestation, fetal heartbeat is strong and normal, the doctor said, pushing up his glasses. Miss Chloe is indeed pregnant, and the baby is very healthy and active. The color drained from Vivian's face completely, and she quickly spoke.
Impossible.
In the past life, you all saw it. She accused me of pushing her down the stairs, and after her miscarriage, it was a pillow that fell out. Ethan, you saw it with your own eyes. How could she really be pregnant? The whole family was stunned, but what echoed in their minds was my earlier thought. Was pushed down the stairs by a bad person and lost her baby. Especially Dad. Listening to my cheerful inner voice and seeing the indeed existing tiny bean on the screen, his expression was incredibly complex. Vivian saw their expression soften. She immediately put on that pitiful look, speaking softly and weakly. Maybe we truly misunderstood Chloe in the past life. Perhaps she was really pregnant but miscarried accidentally, then had a breakdown and mistook the pillow for her baby. It's just, I can't understand how someone intellectually impaired and mentally unstable could be so cunning, capable of plotting against us and causing our deaths. Hearing this, Kyle immediately scoffed, his eyes filled with vigilance and hatred. So, what if she's not faking her pregnancy? It's an undeniable fact that Chloe ruined our family in the past life. And what kind of good could come from that vicious woman's belly? Probably just a little monster, here to make our lives hell.
Wah.
Uncle's mean. How can he call me a monster? I'm here to bring good fortune. I pouted aggrievedly, turning over unhappily in Mom's tummy. Kyle choked on his words at this sudden protest and went silent. Mom seemed to sense something, gently stroking her belly. She looked at her family even more confusedly. You're all so strange. Pregnancy, and you're talking about past lives? No one had the mind to explain the past life to a beautiful, simple-minded woman with low intelligence. Vivian's eyes turned cold, but when she looked at Kyle, Richard, and Eleanor, her voice became sugary sweet. Kyle, how can you speak of Chloe and her unborn child like that? Chloe doesn't know anything right now, and her intelligence is low. Perhaps the maliciousness from the past life. Enough! Dad abruptly cut her off, his voice sharp. He rubbed his temples, his mind filled with my thoughts of becoming a little ghost to wipe Mommy's tears, and struggled for countless days. A strange pang twisted in his chest. Even if she was bad, the child is innocent. Though his tone was still firm, the killing intent from before was clearly gone. Grandpa Richard also frowned, looking at his daughter's bewildered, innocent eyes and her bulging abdomen, speaking in a low voice. Until things are completely clear, everyone, speak less. His gaze swept over Vivian, carrying a flicker of scrutiny. Grandma Eleanor looked at the little life on the screen, and a subtle softness also flashed in her eyes. Vivian felt a jolt of panic seeing them hesitate, but on her face, she managed to look even more wronged. That's true. Maybe this time our family can have a good ending. At her words, the various events of the past life seemed to replay before everyone's eyes, preventing them from letting down their guard or their hatred. Vivian saw that she had achieved her desired effect and immediately looked at Mom provocatively. Chloe, everyone cares about you so much. You really must keep this baby safe. Mom completely missed the malice in her words, returning a bright, silly smile and nodding vigorously. Uh-huh. Thank you, Vivian, for your concern. Baby, and I will do our best. Vivian choked at her pure reaction, almost failing to maintain her expression. Back at the family estate, the atmosphere remained heavy. Though Dad no longer mentioned tormenting Mom, his gaze was still cold. Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor were silent, and Kyle had moved to the guest house furthest from the main residence, adopting an out-of-sight, out-of-mind attitude. Yet, in his ears, he still seemed to hear Uncle's mean. It was the weekend family dinner. A critical bidding document from Grandpa Richard's study had vanished without a trace. Search. Search everywhere. Grandpa Richard roared, his face ashen with fury. Only family members knew where that document was kept. All suspicious glances instantly focused on Mom. After all, in the past life, it was Mom who had leaked company secrets. Vivian, supporting Grandpa Richard, appeared worried, but every word was carefully manipulative. Chloe, you're the only one who entered Dad's study these past few days. I know your memory isn't great during pregnancy, but the document is very important. Can you please try to remember where you put it? Mom looked bewildered, trying hard to recall. I did go into the study to bring Dad ginseng tea, but I didn't touch any documents.
Ah.
That bad woman wants Mom to take the fall again. That bad woman clearly snuck into the study last night herself, took Grandpa's document, and hid it under the rug. I saw it all. You want to frame Mommy again, you bad person? I was so furious I kicked and thrashed inside Mom's belly. Dad, Kyle, Grandpa Richard, and Grandma Eleanor's faces all changed simultaneously. Their gazes shot towards the rug in the corner of the study. There, indeed, was a small, barely noticeable bulge. Vivian noticed a stare, her face changing abruptly. She instinctively moved her hand to block it. Dad's face was as dark as a storm cloud, his gaze icy as he stared at her. Get the document you hid under the rug out. Vivian flinched back. Ethan, I didn't. Get it out. Dad's tone brooked no argument. Finally, the lost document was found under the rug. The setup was undeniable, the evidence ironclad. Vivian's tears instantly welled up. Her shoulders trembled slightly. She looked utterly wronged. It was me who hid it, I'm sorry. I was just so scared. I was afraid Chloe would, like in the past life, leak such an important document and cause our family's bankruptcy, leading to a tragic life. I didn't know what to do. I just acted on impulse. I thought I'd hide it first and secretly put it back after the bidding ended. That way, it would be foolproof. Her excuse was riddled with holes, even a little foolish. However, seeing Vivian cry so heartbrokenly and hearing her mention the past life's tragedy, the strictness in Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor's eyes softened slightly, replaced by a complex understanding. As if her foolish actions truly stemmed from love and fear for the family. Kyle immediately stepped forward, shielding her. Vivian was also thinking of the family. She just used the wrong method. Compared to someone who deliberately plotted to ruin our family and lives in the past, this small oversight is nothing. I lay in Mom's tummy, idly splashing my little feet in the amniotic fluid. Uncle, that bad woman wasn't unintentional at all. She deliberately framed Mom. If Dad hadn't helped Mommy this time, Mommy would have been accused of leaking information again, just like in the past. Silly uncle, I won't let you lift me up high anymore. Kyle's body stiffened abruptly, and the arm protecting Vivian seemed to freeze slightly, his mood heavy. Dad frowned, staring at the crying Vivian, not speaking immediately, but the suspicion in his eyes deepened. Over the next few days, similar minor incidents happened one after another. Whenever something bad occurred in the family, all evidence would point to my beautiful, slightly naive mom. Each time, as the entire family turned their accustomed hateful glances towards my bewildered and helpless mom, my clear and urgent inner voice would chime in at just the right moment, like a little detective pointing out the crucial evidence. Initially, they remained skeptical, but every time they investigated according to the hints, they accurately found evidence proving Mom's innocence.
Time after time.
Dad's gaze towards Mom was no longer the pure hatred it had been, but filled with incredible confusion. Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor looked at Mom's consistently clear, slightly silly, innocent eyes. Comparing them to Vivian's feeble excuses after being exposed again and again, they fell into a prolonged silence. Even Kyle, the most unwavering, in the face of repeated coincidences and evidence, gradually couldn't immediately jump to Vivian's defense. He just looked at Mom with a more complex and scrutinizing gaze. Could it be that the vicious woman, Chloe, who had ruined their family in the past life, was truly innocent? After a business gala, Dad and Kyle went to the parking lot to get their car, and Mom and Vivian followed. Suddenly, a dozen men armed with clubs and menacing expressions surrounded them from the shadows. Long time no see, Ethan, Kyle? The leader grinned maliciously. Finally caught you alone. This time, if I don't cripple you, I'll have lived for nothing. Oh, and you brought two pretty women along, huh? Perfect. Let's take them all. I was so anxious I bounced around inside Mom's belly. This didn't happen in the past life. Why are there bad guys suddenly coming to bully Daddy and Uncle Kyle? Daddy and Uncle Kyle, you must be careful. Hearing my inner voice, Dad and Kyle's faces hardened simultaneously, and they quickly took a defensive stance, back to back. Dad looked at the lecherous leader, his face sinking. Watch your mouth. Say one more word, and I'll rip it off. Kyle's face was also incredibly grim. Vivian, Chloe, you two go first. Vivian's voice trembled. No. How can I leave you with so many people? We're family. Even with her low intelligence, Mom could tell it was dangerous. Protecting her belly, she blurted out. Okay, I'll go first. With that, she actually turned and ran without hesitation. Her speed was unbelievable for a pregnant woman. Dad and Kyle, seeing her decisive abandonment and self-preservation, couldn't help but feel disheartened. The hatred for her that had recently wavered surged up again. Kyle scoffed, his tone full of sarcasm. Sure enough, in a crisis, she's not so dumb. Her selfish nature is exposed, just like in the past life, and we actually believed her again and again. Foolish for 2 lifetimes, huh? Dad's lips were pressed into a thin line, and though he said nothing, his eyes had grown much colder. Vivian, seeing Mom run off, had a flicker of surprise and triumph in her eyes, then switched back to a look of extreme worry. Kyle, Ethan, even if Chloe doesn't care about our lives, she's pregnant. With so many bad guys, I'm worried. I'm going to check on her. After saying that, she also quickly ran off, but instead of chasing Mom, she hailed a car and, smirking, she drove off. In the parking lot, Dad and Kyle stood back to back, surrounded by a dozen burly men with iron bars. Both were injured. Ethan's lip was split and bleeding, and Kyle's white shirt had blood seeping from the shoulder. The leader's eyes gleamed malevolently as he swung the cold iron bar. Brothers, they're exhausted. Let's get them. They're worth a fortune, millions each. If we sell their organs separately, even more valuable. As the others prepared to charge again, Dad and Kyle's faces were grim. Just then, my inner voice was heard from the darkness. There's no signal here in the parking lot, but Mommy has already called the police, and she's also called Grandpa and Grandma. The police will be here soon, Daddy and Uncle Kyle. You must hold on. Mommy, you must protect yourself too. I'm so scared and worried. Then came Mom's scream. She rushed out of the parking lot, holding a thick wooden stick, sweating profusely. Stop it. No one gets to bully my family. Dad's eyes were wide with shock and horror. Kyle's ear was bleeding badly, and he couldn't hear a thing. Seeing Mom run back, his face twisted with scorn and hatred. You didn't care about sticking together a moment ago. Now you're back pretending? Chloe, are you here to watch us die? Are you happy to see us die again? Mom ignored Kyle's taunts. Seeing the group swinging their clubs at Kyle's head, she screamed. Kyle. Terrified, she rushed forward like a madwoman, throwing herself over him. The heavy iron bar struck her with brutal force. Mom screamed, and in front of Kyle, she collapsed softly to the ground. Bright red blood immediately gushed from between her legs, quickly staining her light-colored skirt. Two voices, twisted with shock, simultaneously pierced the silent night. Chloe! Chloe! The heavy, sickening sound of the iron bar hitting flesh echoed through the damp, concrete parking lot. Chloe didn't even have time to scream a second time. She crumpled like a broken paper doll, her body falling over Kyle's knees. Her simple, childlike face was twisted in agonizing pain, her eyes wide with a desperate, instinctive urge to protect her abdomen. Almost instantly, a deep, terrifying crimson began to bloom across her light-colored skirt, spreading rapidly, staining the cold asphalt. Chloe, Kyle's voice cracked, a raw, jagged sound that didn't sound like his own. The ear that had been bleeding was completely forgotten. He stared at his sister, who was trembling violently in his arms. The very sister he had spent 2 lifetimes hating, the sister he had just accused of being a selfish, calculating monster. She had thrown herself over him. She had taken a blow meant to crush his skull. At that moment, a weak, trembling, and utterly terrified voice echoed directly in the minds of Ethan, Kyle, and the approaching police officers, though to the family, it was a familiar, heartbreaking whisper. It hurts, it's so cold. Mommy's tummy is getting cold. No, baby. Doesn't want to leave. I don't want to become a little ghost again. Daddy. Uncle Kyle, it hurts so much. Please save Mommy, don't let her cry. The baby's inner voice, usually so bubbly, bright, and full of sweet chatter, was now incredibly faint, like a candle flickering in a violent storm.
It was
laced with a choking, childlike sob that vibrated deep within their souls. Ethan felt as if a physical hand had reached into his chest and ripped his heart
out.
His eyes turned entirely bloodshot. The cold, calculating CEO, who had prided himself on his rationality in both lives, completely snapped. I'll kill you all, Ethan whispered, his voice dangerously quiet before he lunged at the remaining thugs like a feral beast. He didn't care about the iron bars swinging at him. He didn't care about the
pain.
He tackled the leader to the ground, his fists raining down with terrifying, lethal force. The sheer, unbridled madness in his eyes terrified the thugs, who began to retreat in panic just as the flashing red and blue lights of police cruisers finally illuminated the dark parking lot. Freeze! Police! Sirens wailed, but to Kyle, the world was entirely silent. He was on his knees, his hands hovering over Chloe's blood-stained skirt, shaking so violently he couldn't touch her. Why did you do that? Kyle choked out, tears finally streaming down his face, mixing with the dirt and blood on his cheeks. You're supposed to be the one who ruined us. You're supposed to be a devil. Why did you save me? Chloe's eyelids fluttered. Even in her semi-conscious state, her mind, simple and slow, only registered one thing. She reached out with a trembling, bloody hand, lightly touching Kyle's cheek. Kyle, don't cry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Sister will protect you. Don't go to that bad place again. Don't go to prison. Don't go to prison. Kyle froze. The realization hit him like a physical blow. In their past life, when he was framed and dragged away in handcuffs, Chloe had stood in the rain, crying and pulling at the police officer's sleeves until her fingers bled, only to be dragged away by Vivian. He had thought she was putting
On a show.
He had thought she was celebrating his demise. But she had remembered. Even with her low intelligence, her soul remembered the sheer terror of losing her brother to a cold, dark prison. Uncle, don't cry. The tiny, fading voice in their minds whispered, "Mommy loves Uncle the most. She always made your favorite strawberry cake, even when her hands were burned. Mommy is a good person."
I'm sorry.
"I'm so sorry." Kyle collapsed, burying his face in his hands, weeping uncontrollably. "Get the ambulance."
Now.
Ethan roared, pushing past the police officers.
He
Knelt beside Chloe, his face pale, his hands gently cradling her head. "Chloe, look at me. Stay awake. Do you hear me? Stay awake. I'm here. Ethan is here." Chloe looked at him, her vision blurring. "Ethan, our baby," the doctor said. "The baby is healthy." "Yes, the baby is healthy. She's waiting for you. She wants to see us." Ethan's voice cracked. He felt a profound, agonizing regret. He had held a dagger to this woman's throat just weeks ago. He had planned to make her life a living
hell.
and all the while, she had been carrying their child, the child she had lost in the past life, the child who had spent an eternity as a lonely little ghost, fighting tooth and nail just to be born to her again. The hospital corridor was choked with a suffocating, heavy silence. The red in surgery, light cast an eerie, bloody glow over the faces of the
Family.
Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor had rushed to the hospital the moment they received the alert. When they arrived and saw the blood on Ethan and Kyle's clothes and heard the horrific details of the ambush, Eleanor nearly fainted. But what truly broke them was the faint, agonizingly weak heartbeat of thoughts they could still hear in their minds. "So dark. Mommy, where are you? I can't find your hand. Is baby going to disappear? I didn't even get to see what Daddy looks like. I wanted to tell Daddy he's the handsomest man in the world. Grandpa, Grandma,
I'm sorry.
couldn't bring you good fortune this time." Eleanor covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking violently as she wept against Richard's chest. "Richard, do you hear her? Do you hear our grandbaby? She's dying." Richard, a man who had remained stoic and unyielding through bankruptcy, ruin, and death, felt his eyes burn with tears. He looked at his hands, recalling how he had cold-shouldered Chloe when she tried to hand him ginseng tea, how he had immediately suspected her of stealing the bidding document. "We were fools," Richard whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of grief and profound rage. "We let our hatred blind us. We let a viper guide our eyes, while our own flesh and blood was being torn to pieces." Kyle sat on the floor, his back against the cold hospital wall, his head buried in his knees. "I called her a monster," he whispered hoarsely. "I told her she would give birth to a little monster. But she saved me. She didn't even hesitate." Just then, the elevator doors at the end of the hall slid open with a soft
Chime.
Vivian walked out. Her hair was slightly damp, and she had changed into a clean, expensive designer coat. Her face was flushed with what she hoped looked like breathless panic, but to the hypervigilant eyes of the family, her immaculate appearance was a jarring contrast to the blood-spattered, battered state of Ethan and Kyle. "Ethan."
Kyle.
Vivian rushed forward, her voice dripping with artificial tears. "Oh my God. Thank heaven you're both alive. I was so scared when I ran to find help. My phone lost signal, and then I finally found a taxi. I came as fast as I could. How is Chloe? How is the baby?" Ethan didn't stand up. He slowly raised his head, his eyes so dark and devoid of warmth they looked like twin abysses. "You ran to find help?" Ethan's voice was flat, dangerously calm.
Yes.
"Yes, of course." Vivian nodded rapidly, grabbing Ethan's arm. "You know how weak and useless I am in a fight. I would have only been a burden. I wanted to call the police, but the parking lot was a dead zone." "A dead zone?" Kyle suddenly let out a low, bitter laugh. He stood up, his tall frame looming over Vivian. The absolute disgust and hatred in his eyes made her flinch. "If it was a dead zone, Vivian, how did Chloe, a woman you claim has the intellect of a child, manage to dial the police and send a distress signal to our family guards before she ran back into the fray?" Kyle stepped closer, his voice rising with a dangerous edge. "How did she have the presence of mind to do that, while you, the brilliant, capable Vivian, could only think of hailing a taxi and changing her clothes?" Vivian's heart skipped a beat. Her face paled slightly, but she quickly covered
It.
I was in shock. I wasn't thinking straight. Kyle, how can you doubt
Me?
We went through so much in our past life. You know Chloe is the one who ruined us. Shut up. Ethan stood up. The sheer aura of pressure radiating from the CEO made the air in the corridor freeze. He grabbed Vivian's wrist, his grip so tight the bones
Groaned.
In the past life, you told me Chloe faked her pregnancy with a pillow, Ethan said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You told me she pushed herself down the stairs to frame you. And because I was blind, I believed you. But she did. Vivian cried out, panic finally setting in. Ethan, you saw the pillow. I saw a pillow because my child was already dead. Ethan roared, his composure finally shattering. He threw Vivian's hand away as if touching toxic waste.
She
was pushed. She miscarried. And because her mind couldn't handle the trauma of losing her baby, she held a pillow to her chest and sang lullabies to a ghost. And you used her grief to paint her as a scheming demon. Vivian gasped, stepping back, her eyes wide with horror. How? How do you?
Who told you that?
She couldn't have told you that. She's stupid. She doesn't even understand what miscarriage means. She didn't have to tell me, Richard said, stepping forward, his eyes burning with a patriarch's cold fury. The heavens have eyes, Vivian. Your sins are no longer hidden. At that moment, the door to the surgery room swung open. A doctor walked out, his expression grim, his scrubs stained with blood. Who is the husband? The doctor asked, pulling off his mask. I am, Ethan said, instantly stepping forward.
How is she?
How is my wife?
And
the baby? The doctor sighed heavily, looking at the chart. The blunt force trauma to her back was severe, but fortunately, her thick winter coat absorbed some of the impact. However, the emotional stress and the shock have triggered a severe, threatened abortion. She is hemorrhaging. We've managed to stabilize her for
now, but
the doctor paused, looking sympathetic. The fetus's heart rate is dangerously
low.
It's dropping by the minute. In these cases, we usually recommend a therapeutic termination to save the mother's life, as the strain of trying to carry a failing pregnancy could cause her to go into disseminated intravascular coagulation.
No.
Eleanor let out a sob, clutching her husband's arm. Inside their minds, a tiny, terrified whimper echoed.
No.
Daddy, don't let them take me away. I want to stay with Mommy.
I'm
holding on tightly. I'm really trying my best. It's so cold, but if I leave, Mommy will be so sad again. She will hold the pillow and cry. I don't want Mommy to be sad. The baby's voice was so weak now, like a tiny thread about to snap. The pure, selfless love of this unborn child, who was fighting through excruciating pain, just to spare her mother's grief, shattered every remaining piece of the family's defenses. Ethan's eyes flooded with tears. He grabbed the doctor's shoulders, his voice
shaking.
Is there any other way?
Please.
Save them both. I will pay any amount. Bring in any specialist. Just save my wife and my child. We are doing everything we can, the doctor said. But honestly, at 14 weeks, it's up to the fetus's own will to survive. We've administered the maximum safe dosage of progesterone and uterine relaxants. The next 12 hours are critical. If the heart rate doesn't stabilize, we will have to operate to save the mother. As the doctor walked back into the intensive care unit, Ethan turned his gaze slowly toward Vivian. The grief in his eyes had hardened into a terrifying, crystalline malice. Kyle, Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. I'm here, Kyle replied, his face expressionless, but his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. Find the men from tonight. I don't care what methods you use, make them talk. Find out who paid them, who gave them our schedule, and who ordered the hit. Ethan looked at Vivian, whose face had gone completely bloodless. And call the police department's internal affairs. I want the security footage from the parking lot, the surrounding streets, and Vivian's phone records for the last 48 hours.
Ethan.
You can't do this to me. Vivian screamed, trying to run past them, but two of the family guards, who had just arrived, instantly blocked her path.
I'm
your sister-in-law. I've been by your side for years. You're believing the delusions of a mentally disabled woman over me. Take her away, Richard commanded, his voice cold and commanding. Lock her in the family villa's basement. If my daughter or my grandchild suffers even a single scratch of permanent damage, I will make sure Vivian understands what it means to crave death. Yes, Chairman, the guards replied, ruthlessly grabbing Vivian by her arms and dragging her away despite her frantic shrieking. While Chloe lay in the ICU, fighting for her life, a storm of biblical proportions was brewing outside the hospital walls.
Kyle did not sleep.
Assisted by the security team of the family conglomerate, they tracked down the gang leader, a man named Marcus. It didn't take long, with the police already hunting them down and the immense pressure of the family's wealth. Marcus's subordinates broke within hours. By 3 a.m., Kyle was standing in a dim interrogation room, staring through the one-way glass at Marcus, who was covered in bruises from Ethan's earlier fury. "She paid us $50,000 up front," Marcus sang like a canary, terrified of the murder charges looming over him. "The woman, Vivian,"
She said.
"she wanted us to teach the two guys a lesson. She told us to make it look like a random mugging gone wrong. She specifically told us to make sure the pregnant one got taken care of in the chaos. She said if the baby died, she'd double the payout." Kyle's breathing hitched. If the baby died, she'd double the payout. The words echoed in his ears, heavy and poisonous. He pulled out his phone and dialed Ethan. "Ethan, we have the confession. It was her. All of it. And there's more." Kyle's voice trembled as he looked at the financial records his team had unearthed from the past life's archives, files they had recovered from old, encrypted servers that had somehow survived their previous ruin. The leaked documents from the past life, the ones that bankrupted Dad's company, they weren't sent from Chloe's IP address. "I had our tech team run a deep trace on the old backup servers. The routing protocol was masked, but the physical MAC address belonged to a laptop registered under Vivian's name.
She
Framed Chloe. She used Chloe's password, which she stole while pretending to help her brush her hair." On the other end of the line, Ethan sat beside Chloe's hospital bed, holding her cold, pale hand. Hearing Kyle's words, his eyes closed, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down his cheek. "And the car accident?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The brake lines on your car in the past life." Kyle choked back a sob.
We
"Found an offshore account transaction. Vivian transferred a massive sum to a mechanic 2 days before your accident. Chloe tried to stop you from driving that day, remember? She threw a tantrum, blocked the door, and screamed that the car was a monster. We thought she was just being crazy and difficult." Ethan looked down at Chloe's peaceful, sleeping face. She was so simple. When she saw danger, she didn't know how to explain it with sophisticated words. She could only use her limited vocabulary: monster, bad, scary, and when they didn't listen, she used her own body to block them. And they had pushed her away. They had called her a nuisance, an embarrassment, a curse. "I understand," Ethan said softly. "Bring the evidence to the police. No bail.
no visitation.
I want her prosecuted to the absolute limit of the law. Attempted murder, corporate espionage, conspiracy. Let her rot." He hung up the phone and gently pressed Chloe's hand to his forehead. "I'm sorry, Chloe," he whispered into the quiet room. "I'm so sorry." Suddenly, a soft, tentative whisper fluttered in his mind. "Daddy. Is Daddy crying? Don't cry. Baby is feeling a little warmer now. The medicine Mommy took is sweet. I'm hugging Mommy's tummy, see?" Ethan gasped, his head snapping up. He looked at the heart rate monitor beside
The bed.
the fetal heart rate, which had plummeted to a terrifying 80 beats per minute, had suddenly jumped back up to 120, then 130. A steady, rhythmic, beautiful thumping filled the quiet ICU. "I told you, I'm a strong baby," the voice chimed, though still a bit tired. It had regained its familiar, cheeky warmth. "I have to protect Mommy and I have to see Daddy. Daddy, did you beat up the bad guys? You're so cool." Ethan let out a wet, breathless laugh, his chest heaving with a mixture of overwhelming relief and joy. He leaned over, placing a gentle, reverent kiss on Chloe's rounded belly. "Yes, sweetie," Ethan whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Daddy beat them all up. You are the bravest, strongest baby in the world. Thank you for staying." When the morning sun filtered through the sterile blinds of the private hospital, sweet, Chloe slowly opened her eyes. The pain in her back made her gasp slightly, but she immediately reached down to feel her stomach. "Baby," she whimpered, her simple eyes filling with panic. "My baby." "The baby is fine, Chloe. She's safe. You're both safe." A warm, steady hand gently caught her fingers. Chloe looked up to see Ethan, sitting by her bedside. His eyes were red, his chin covered in light stubble, but the look he gave her was softer and more tender than anything she had ever seen in 2 lifetimes. Chloe blinked, a bit confused. "Ethan, you're not mad at me?" "Why would I be mad at you?" Ethan's voice was incredibly gentle as he brushed a stray lock of hair from her forehead. Because I'm stupid, Chloe whispered, lowering her gaze, her lip trembling. Vivian said, I always make mistakes. She said I ruin everything and that if I didn't behave, you would throw me away and take the baby. Ethan's heart twisted in agonizing pain. He realized how deeply Vivian had psychologically abused Chloe, exploiting her low intelligence to keep her terrified, silent, and compliant. Vivian was lying, Ethan said, his voice firm and absolute. You are the best, most beautiful, and bravest wife in the world. I will never, ever throw you
Away.
I will spend the rest of my life protecting you. At that moment, the door to the suite opened quietly. Kyle stood at the entrance, carrying a bowl of warm, freshly made chicken soup. He looked incredibly nervous, like a child waiting for a scolding. Seeing Chloe awake, he hesitated, then slowly walked in. Chloe,
Kyle called out softly.
Chloe's eyes lit up when she saw him.
Kyle.
You're okay. Your ear, does it still hurt? Kyle froze. The first thing she asked about was his injury. He set the soup down on the nightstand, his knees suddenly feeling weak. He sank to his knees beside her bed, grabbing her hand, his shoulders shaking as he
Wept. I'm sorry, Chloe.
I'm so sorry. I was a horrible brother. I said such awful things to you. I didn't deserve to be saved by you. Chloe looked at her crying brother, her simple mind not quite understanding the depth of his regret, but she felt his sadness. She reached out and patted his head gently, just as she used to do when they were children. Don't cry, Kyle. You're my brother. I will always protect you.
See?
I told you my mommy is the best. The baby's proud inner voice echoed in their minds, practically boasting. Uncle Kyle, you have to be extra nice to mommy from now on. And you have to buy me lots of toys when I'm born. Kyle let out a tearful laugh, looking at Chloe's stomach. Yes, I will. I'll buy you the whole toy store. I'll lift you up so high you can touch the sky just like you wanted. Chloe blinked, looking at Kyle, then at her belly. Kyle, how did you know the baby wants to go high? Kyle and Ethan exchanged a warm, knowing glance. Just a lucky guess, Ethan smiled, gently squeezing Chloe's hand. While the hospital suite was filled with warmth, the basement of the family villa was as cold as a tomb. Vivian sat huddled in the corner, her expensive coat dirty, her hair disheveled. The realization that she was completely ruined had finally set in. The police had already visited, presenting her with the ironclad evidence, Marcus's detailed confession, her bank transactions, and the deep trace forensic evidence of the corporate leak from years ago. The door to the basement groaned open. Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor walked down the steps, accompanied by several lawyers and guards. Grandma. Vivian scrambled to her feet, rushing toward them, but the guards instantly pinned her back. Please, you have to listen to me. I did it. For the family. In the past life, Chloe really did destroy us. I was only trying to prevent it from happening again. I was trying to save you. Richard looked down at her, his eyes colder than the winter frost. Do you still think we are fools, Vivian? Richard's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a mountain. We know everything. We know about the MAC address. We know about the bribe to the mechanic. We know you pushed Chloe down the stairs and forced her into a miscarriage. Vivian's breath hitched, her eyes bulging with terror.
No.
How could you know that? The police didn't have that. There was no evidence of that from the past life. It's impossible. The heavens are watching, Vivian, Eleanor said, her voice trembling with disgust. The child you tried to kill, twice, has returned. And she has exposed every single one of your filthy lies. The child, Vivian whispered, her mind spinning. No, that's impossible. She's just a fetus. She can't speak. We have filed the official charges. Richard's lawyer stepped forward, holding a stack of legal documents. Given the severity of the charges, attempted murder of multiple family members, grand theft of trade secrets, corporate espionage, and illegal financial transactions, the prosecution will be seeking the maximum
Penalty.
in this state. Conspiracy to commit double homicide carries a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
No.
Ethan wouldn't do this to me. He loved me. He was going to marry me. In the past life. Vivian screamed, her voice cracking as she struggled against
The guards.
Ethan never loved you, Richard said coldly, turning his back on her. He only tolerated you because he thought you were the one who saved his life during the kidnapping when he was 10. But we checked the medical records of that orphanage. Yesterday, Vivian. It wasn't you who dragged him out of the burning warehouse. It was Chloe. She burned her hands, saving him, while you ran away to call the teachers to take the credit. Vivian froze, her mouth open, unable to utter a single word. Her final, greatest lie, the very foundation of Ethan's past life tolerance for her, had been completely dismantled. Take her to the police station, Richard ordered. I don't want to see her face in this house ever again. As Vivian was dragged out, screaming and cursing, the dark clouds that had hung over the family for 2 lifetimes finally began to disperse. The spring passed, and summer arrived, bringing with it warm breezes and blooming jasmine. Chloe's belly grew rounder and rounder because of her threatened miscarriage in the first trimester. The entire family treated her like a fragile, priceless treasure. Ethan practically moved a CEO office into their home, refusing to leave her side for more than a few hours. Kyle, having completely cleared his name of any past misunderstandings, became the most doting uncle in history, constantly bringing home organic fruits, handmade baby clothes, and books on early childhood education. Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor visited every weekend, bringing heirloom jewelry and planning the grandest welcome party the city had ever seen for their granddaughter. And through it all, the little voice in Chloe's belly remained the heart of the home.
Wow.
Grandma brought me a gold anklet. It's so shiny. I want to wear it on my left foot. Daddy, Mommy wants to eat strawberry ice cream. But don't let her eat too much, otherwise her tummy will ache, and then I'll have to do flips to warm her up. Uncle Kyle is reading a fairy tale book again. His voice is so funny when he tries to sound like a dragon. Uncle, you sound more like a choking frog. Whenever Kyle heard this in his mind, he would cough awkwardly, but a bright, happy smile would instantly spread across his face. The dark, vengeful atmosphere of reborn souls seeking retribution had completely vanished, replaced by the pure, healing warmth of a family that had been given a second chance to love. One evening, as Ethan lay his head on Chloe's lap, his hand gently resting on her bulging stomach, he felt a soft, rhythmic kick right against his palm. She's very active today, Ethan smiled, looking up at Chloe. Chloe smiled back, her eyes clear, simple, and filled with unconditional love. She stroked Ethan's hair. Ethan, the baby told me she's very happy. Ethan's breath caught slightly. She told you? Chloe nodded vigorously. In my dreams, a little girl with big, round eyes and 2 little pigtails hugs me. She says thank you to Mommy and Daddy for giving her such a warm home. She says she can't wait to meet us. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. He sat up, wrapping his arms around Chloe, holding her close to his chest. We can't wait to meet her too, he whispered. I'm coming soon. The baby's voice cheered, bursting with anticipation. Just a little bit longer, Daddy, Mommy. I'm going to be the happiest baby in the whole wide world. In the late autumn, when the maple leaves turned a brilliant, fiery red, Chloe went into labor. The hospital wing was entirely blocked off by the family's security team, but inside the waiting room, the atmosphere was a mix of intense anxiety and eager excitement. Richard paced the floor, Eleanor prayed silently with her silver rosary, and Kyle was busy double-checking the baby's nursery bag for the 10th
time.
Inside the delivery room, Ethan held Chloe's hand, whispering words of encouragement as she strained and pushed, sweat soaking her hair. You're doing great, Chloe. Just a little more. I'm right here. It hurts. Ethan, it hurts. Chloe cried, but she didn't give up. Her simple mind was incredibly stubborn when it came to her child. In their minds, the baby's voice was incredibly focused and determined. Okay, baby is ready. Push, Mommy. I'm crawling out now. 1, 2, 3, push. With one final, monumental effort from Chloe, a sharp, loud, and incredibly healthy cry pierced the sterile air of the delivery room.
Wah.
The doctor smiled, quickly wrapping the newborn in a soft, pink blanket. Congratulations. It's a healthy baby girl, 7 pounds, perfect APGAR score. As the doctor placed the crying, squirming bundle onto Chloe's chest, a strange, beautiful thing happened. The inner voice that had accompanied them for 9 months, the silent, mental whisper, suddenly stopped. The psychic connection was gone. But in its place was something infinitely better. The baby girl, her tiny face flushed pink, slowly stopped crying as she felt her mother's warmth. She opened her dark, intelligent eyes, blinking at the bright world. She reached out with a tiny, fragile hand, her little fingers instinctively wrapping around Chloe's thumb. She's so beautiful, Chloe whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face as she kissed the baby's forehead. Ethan leaned down, wrapping his arms around both of them, his tears falling onto Chloe's shoulder. He looked at his daughter, who was looking back at him with a curious, wise little gaze. The baby let out a soft, tiny coo, a sound of pure contentment. She didn't need an inner voice anymore. She had finally arrived in the world, surrounded by the deep, protective love of a father who would shield her from any storm, a mother who had given her everything, an uncle who would carry her on his shoulders, and grandparents who cherished her very existence. The tragedy of the past life was entirely washed away by the autumn rain, leaving behind only the bright, golden promise of a beautiful new dawn.